Welcome to this free webinar, EMDR in the Sandtray with all ages. It is important to know that this webinar is only for clinicians that have completed the EMDR basic training. If you have not completed the EMDR basic training, this webinar is not for you. All right. I am Jackie Flynn. I'm an EMDRIA approved consultant and a registered play therapist. And in this webinar, you're going to learn how to perform EMDR therapy phase 3 assessment in the Sandtray. You're going to identify the targets, elicit cognitions, the VOC, that validity of cognition, that subjective unit of distress, emotions, and somatic sensations. So let's just jump right in. All right, I'm going to show you how to perform phase 3 assessment of EMDR therapy in your Sandtray therapy sessions. Both of these therapies are robust options to use across the lifespan, especially with children and teens. When integrating, their healing potential is immense. Your clients may experience a deeper level of work when compared to either one alone. So in this image right here, you can see my therapy couch, my sand tray. I love this round sand tray. I purchased it off of Etsy. I'm a huge fan of the Jurassic sand. That one's the red one. I have lots of miniatures that I've just compiled over the years. And there's my Neurotech device, which I just got a new one in the mail, the new model. So I can't wait to use that. I just got it last night. I'm excited. And you can see my SUD and VOC scale right there laminated on the couch. All right, so if you would like to go more in depth, definitely check out my EMDR and Sandtray Therapy integrated course. In this course, I take you through all 8 phases of EMDR therapy in the Sandtray, as well as teach you some specialized techniques. This in this image, this is my daughter, Angel. She is one of the demonstrators in the course. I do have some live demonstrations so that you can see exactly what to do. It's not just telling you what to do. In the bottom, you can see how I incorporate the labyrinth in my Sandtray therapy and EMDR sessions. It is great for helping clients just regain that sense of emotional equilibrium. I love labyrinths. All right, so don't be clicking around during this. I would love it if you could just turn off all of the distractions so that you can really get the most out of this training. You deserve it. Make sure that you can silence your phone, or you can just not check email, and dedicate this time to improving your knowledge, or growing your knowledge on integrating these 2 robust types of therapy. Okay, so I would love to just take a few guesses at why you might be taking this training today. And my first guess is maybe you're trained in EMDR, but you're just a little bit fuzzy on the phases and how to actually deliver it with Fidelity, with or without Sandtray therapy. One thing that I've noticed as a EMDRIA approved consultant is that a lot of child therapists, they will go through the EMDR basic training, and when they come back to their practice, they don't actually use it because they didn't get that practical application knowledge that they need to actually implement it with their clients. So it just lies dormant for a while. And by the time that they are like, okay, now I want to use this, they've actually forgotten some big components of EMDR therapy basic protocol with or without kids. So the thought of using it with Sandtray seems a little bit overwhelming. They're like, I don't actually remember the components of it by itself. Or maybe you're taking this training because you're trained and experienced in EMDR and Sandtray therapy, but you still need that practical application knowledge of the specific how-tos when it comes to integrating the 2 with Fidelity. You need to know exactly what to do. You may have the theory in your mind, but you're like, okay, so when I'm in front of my clients, I don't actually have any techniques that I can really put it into action in real time. And then another reason you may be here is maybe you find yourself procrastinating with EMDR therapy. You went to the training, but you love Sandtray therapy, and you don't want to give up that for your EMDR work, because Sandtray therapy is amazing by itself, and the thought of in any way lessening your impact with that feels like too big of a sacrifice. But the idea of integrating these two robust type of therapies does intrigue you, and you do feel curious. So you saw this training and you were like, okay, let me see what that's all about. So what I would like you to do is just kind of look through these three reasons, and I want you to get really clear on which one or ones of these describe you, and really kind of see, is it that you're fuzzy on the 8 phases? Is it that you trained and experienced in both EMDR and Sandtray, but you just need that practical application knowledge? Or is it that you're procrastinating on EMDR therapy because you're a great a Sandtray therapist already, and it's like, I don't want to mess that up, but I do like EMDR therapy. Okay, so I've been there. It is so confusing at first, but it does get better. I'm here to tell you that you can integrate all 8 phases of EMDR therapy in the Sandtray. It's incredible. I do it all the time. If you haven't done so yet, be sure to check out my website, JackieFlynnConsulting.com. You can see a lot of information there. Okay, so I want to tell you a little bit about who you're learning from. I am the recent founder and creator and host of the Innovative Child Therapy Symposium. This past one, we had 40 expert guests on there talking about all different aspects of child therapy, delivering those services in an innovative way. Invited many people from different disciplines, occupational therapists, registered play therapists, speech therapists, to just really help give us a deeper understanding of how to help the whole child. Also, I am the creator of 8 phases of EMDR therapy with children and adolescents, integrating play therapy techniques course, and EMDR Sandtray Therapy integrated course. So that's the entire course. Those two courses, they do offer EMDRIA credits. A lot of my consultees that are working towards certification, they will either do the online versions, or I do have some in-person trainings as well. I'm the recent creator and host of the 30-day Play Therapy Technique Challenge. On that challenge, people from all around the world, it was like super cool how it all worked. They learned different play therapy techniques that are low cost, minimal prep, that they could use in their practice right away. I'm the host and creator of the Play Therapy Community Podcast, as well as the Facebook group in there. That group is a wonderful community of clinicians from all around the world, just countless country. I think the last time is like 62 countries that I counted, that people come all together. They share resources. They inspire each other. Really good spot for us all together. That's our private Facebook group. I'm also the creator and founder of Counseling in Brevard. That's my local private practice. And I founded a company, EMDR and Play Therapy Integration Support, where I do these trainings through. I put some pictures on the bottom, and the first picture is of me the day that I received my EMDR certification. I put it right in that frame that you can see in the picture. That was a turning point in my work. I love the certification process. That's been a long time ago now. I actually get to be on the flip side of it and help people get certified in EMDR. So, that I put that up there because that was a big day. Right next to it is a picture of a local study group that I facilitate with 2 other colleagues. We are integrating GTEP, that group traumatic event protocol, with Sandtray Therapy. As you can see, there's a little round blue Sandtray right there at the bottom right of the picture. It was so super cool. There was a music festival going on at that time, and it was super distracting, and everybody in that room experienced a lowering of their subjective unit of distress on the target they were working on, so that it works in even unfavorable conditions. And then in the next picture, that is when I read Francine Shapiro's book. That to me was a huge game changer, because I feel like things crystallized at that point. I feel like, kind of like when you have a camera and you're bringing things into focus, that's what it was like reading that book, because some things that I didn't even hear in basic training, because it is so much information, or I heard, but I needed more information, that's when it all crystallized. So that book, if you haven't read that book yet, that's a game changer. Also, next to it is a book that I have coming out later on this year, 8 Phases of EMDR with Children and Adolescents on Integrating EMDR with Play Therapy. And to the right is a book that you can get on Amazon now. I mainly use it for resource development in phase 2, preparation of EMDR therapy using animal imagery. I love using animal imagery in therapy many ways because it can go so deep. Also, I want you to think right now, can you imagine what it would feel like to provide the healing power of EMDR and Sandtray Therapy at the same time? It's super cool. I do it all the time. Even with clients as young as the one in this picture. She's almost 4 years old, but it looks and feels a little bit different. But as long as you are meeting those elements of that EMDRIA definition, then you are delivering it with fidelity. So this is one of my main intentions with this training right here. I want to make sure that you're very clear that the EMDRIA definition is important to keep in mind as you're doing your work, because if you steer away from it, you're not actually doing it with fidelity, and you're going to get the best results when you deliver it with fidelity. So in my trainings, I've created a checklist to make sure all these components are hit in a really kind of simple way, that I'll provide one for phase 3 here in the next slide. But I do want to point you towards EMDRIA's website. That's Eye Movement Desensitization and Reprocessing International Association, EMDRIA.org. You can find the up-to-date information on there. I love that website. I go on it pretty much daily. There's some great resources there. All right, so let's read this verbatim to make sure that we get all the key components. In the assessment phase, phase 3, the clinician identifies the components of the target issue and establishes a baseline response. Once the memory or issue with the specific representative experience has been identified, the clinician asks the client to select the image or other sensory experience that best represents it. The clinician then asks for the negative belief that expresses the client's currently held maladaptive self-assessment that is related to the experience, a positive belief to begin to stimulate a connection between the experience as it is currently held and the maladaptive networks, and the validity of the positive belief utilizing that 7-point validity of cognition VOC scale. Finally, the clinician asks the client to name the emotions evoked when pairing the image or other sensory experience and the negative belief, to rate the level of disturbance utilizing that 0 to 10 subjective units of distress scale, and to identify the location of the physical sensations in the body that are stimulated when concentrating on the experience. That is a mouthful, right? It's very formalized. And I love how it's very clear. You can find the entirety of that EMDRIA definition of all 8 phases and a discussion of the adaptive information processing AIP model at that link right there that I posted, that I copy and pasted right below that. So how can we use that? It's kind of hard to remember all those components when we're working. So I made a quick little checklist, and I do something very similar to this in my 8 Phases of EMDR with Children and Adolescents course. I love the idea of that simplicity. But really, we're hitting all of those key components: the target issue, the image, the negative cognition, the positive cognition with the VOC, the emotions that come out, how disturbing is it in the SUD scale, and where's it felt in the body. So having something like that next to you can help you to make sure that you're doing it with fidelity. One thing that I want to make sure is that you understand that just doing Sandtray therapy with the EMDR tappers or bilateral, any method of bilateral stimulation, whether it's visual, auditory, or tactile, that is not EMDR therapy. That's just Sandtray therapy with the bilateral stimulation added. To be EMDR with fidelity, and this is phase 3 only, know that there's 8 phases you need to hit all the components of that definition. So it is very clear. It's not hard to do, but you do need to make sure you're thorough. Sandtray therapy. I love Sandtray therapy. It surpasses the limitation of words. Now, on the surface, it may look kind of easy to do, and it may look like just putting little toys in the sand. It is way more than that. So, it is important to get trained in it for ethical purposes, not only because it is a super healing type of therapy and you want to make sure that you can use it to its full potential, because it's not just talking about the little images. There's some processing and healing that goes on in there, and insights and regulation, all kinds of stuff. But also, you want to make sure that you can um, help the client and not put them in further distress in any way. So definitely seek out some Sandtray therapy trainings. I tell you about some that I recommend a little later on in this course. All right, so when I thought about this course, I thought about Dr. Jen. If you don't know Dr. Jen yet, definitely seek out some of her work. I'm currently working on a course with her at the time of this recording on animal themed ways to help children emotionally regulate. She's so good. I asked her for this for a quote, and this is what she sent me. Attachment seeking behaviors are often a child's need for co regulation. The body and the brain's way of communicating these needs demonstrates the importance of an embodied bottom up approach to playful therapeutic interventions. Now, bottom up, that is really helping people process on a deeper level, which Sandtray provides in a very amazing way, as well as just play therapy in general. So, that bottom up approach can help us do some deeper work that's not relying on any kind of insight or understanding or words. It goes much deeper and can be longer lasting than that. Okay, so the components of the target issue. So this is kind of what it would look like in the Sandtray, right? So you have the image, the negative cognition, the positive cognition with the VOC, the emotions, and the SUD and location in the body. The image, it displays really nicely in the Sandtray. So that's just an example of what it may look like there, as well as the negative cognition. I love to keep that on a verbal level because we want to have that cognition. Uh, we want to state it and have them hold it together with the image, but we want to support that, just that capacity to have the adaptive shift and to move away from that. It is important to know that only one negative cognition. You can have more than one positive cognition, but limit it to one negative cognition. What you don't want to do is hand them the list of negative cognitions and say, okay, out of all these, I would like you to choose one. That will really take them off track and slow down their processing quite a bit. So it's important to memorize those cognitions, both negative and positive, so it can just flow and sound very smooth and not like you're trying to check some boxes. Okay, so the positive cognition, you can display those in such creative ways in the Sandtray. It could be through the miniatures. You can create something like I'm showing you there in that image with the written statements on there. You can do that in so many different ways. Now, I do like to have that very visible. I like to have the positive cognition present in the sessions just as much as possible. So the VOC you can also measure right there in the Sandtray. I have a whole other training on creative ways to measure the VOC, the SUD, and to do the BLS and stuff like that. So we won't get really in depth in this training, but know that there are. Also, the emotions. As you can see, I have some feeling rocks there. That entire collection cost me about $10 from beginning to end. You can create some really valuable things for minimal cost in your Sandtray therapy miniature collection. And the emotions are a big part of this. This is one of the components of phase 3 that we really need to tease out. Also, the SUD and the location in the body, do that right there at the Sandtray. As you can see my laminated sheet where I am pointing to the SUD. Offering a multitude of creative ways, especially Sandtray therapy, to engage in phase 3 assessment of EMDR therapy, it really opens up an opportunity for deeper level of processing, and ultimately it helps to better help your clients by utilizing some of these other healing therapies. Now, how would integrating EMDR into your Sandtray therapy impact your work with your clients? I want you to really think about that. It could be a profound shift. Go with that. All right, so let's get right into the meat. What does this look like? What does this sound like? How do we actually do this? All right, so here's three examples. The first example is all of these are ones that I made up, the kind of hodgepodge of things that I've seen over the years, but I'm not sharing my client's personal information. So I'm going to be in doing like a little bit of a role play so you can hear from the therapist and the client and see what it looks like and sounds like. So the Sandtray Therapy directive would be, let me have you take this bowl and um, go over to the miniature shelf and just grab some miniatures, put them back into the sand tray, and show me an image that represents this. And that would be whatever the target that you're working on is that you've identified in phase one. So they would bring it back, and then I would hover my hand over all of it, and I would just say, tell me about what you created. So the client may say, well, after my mom died, some things got better right away, because my son was born. So I have lots of hopes and dreams. I feel like he's transforming into like an amazing human being. So I feel like things have gotten brighter in so many ways. But there's this other part of me that's cold and rough, that is harsh, and I get in arguments, and I'm not the best version of myself. And I have these nightmares that haunt me that makes me feel like I'm just a skeleton of myself, that I'm not really my true self. It feels like I'm kind of in prison. Boom. That was the description of the image. So I would, based on what she just told me, I would say, what's the worst part of this image? Well, the worst part is right here, this part, the skeleton. Okay, so just on a side note, and when you get trained in Sandtray therapy, or if you're a Sandtray therapist now, you know that you don't name the miniatures. You wait for the client to name the miniatures. So I may say, tell me about this, tell me about that. Now, once she names it, the skeleton, then I can refer to it as a skeleton. So when you think about the skeleton, it seems like you're having this feeling of, or this negative thought about yourself, like, I am defective. Yeah, it's kind of like I'm defective, something's wrong with me. What do you feel like you would rather believe? Well, I'd rather believe that things will get better. How true does that feel on 1 to 7? 1 not at all, and 7 the most. Well, I know things will get better. It's just really hard right now. 1 to 7, things will get better. I guess it feels kind of like a 5. And when you look at this, it seems like some of the emotions that are coming up is you're just feeling you're really sad. You really miss her. You're grieving, but it feels really hard. You're feeling overwhelmed and really sad. And I start slowing down my speech and getting softer and more connected. So it sounds very conversational. And when you think about this, and I'll hover my hand over that part that she identified as the worst part, and the thought of I am defective, how disturbing does that feel on 0 to 10? 0 not at all, and 10 the most. Well, it feels like a 6. And I'd like you just to scan your body. Notice, where do you feel that disturbance in your body right now? Well, I feel like I'm going to cry, and I have a knot in my throat, and my heart's feeling kind of restricted, kind of tight in my chest. Boom, all of that. You just went through all of those components of phase three. So that can go pretty quickly. It is important to do this at the beginning of the session because it's going to activate your clients, and you want to be able to move right into phase 4 and phase 5 in a nice, smooth way so that it can just have that continuity to it. So super smooth. It should sound conversational, very kind of very connected. You don't want it to sound choppy or rote. All right, so the next one. Let me have you take this bowl and go over to the miniature shelf and create an image that tells me about what it feels like at Dad's house. If the client told me that being at Dad's house was hard. Tell me about what you created. Well, this is my stepmom, and these are her kids. My stepbrother, my stepsister, and I just hate them. I can't stand them. They're so mean, and it feels like I don't get to do anything that I want to. What's the worst part of this? And the worst part may be the little figure that's barely noticeable right there. I feel like I'm alone. I feel like my dad isn't there to protect me because he's always gone and I'm with them and I don't even know them. So the negative cognition seems like when you're telling me about that, it seems like that negative thought about yourself is I'm not in control. I'm not in control. I'm not in control at all. They're the one that controls everything. What would you rather believe? I have choices? Well, yeah, I'd rather believe that I have choices, but I don't. How true does that feel? In 1 to 7, I have choices. And I'll say it like that so that I have that positive cognition around as much as possible. 1, not at all, and 7, the most. I have choices. Well, it feels like a 2. And those emotions that are showing up seems like you're feeling really maybe some anger, some sadness, and lonely. Feels like you're all by yourself. When you look at this image, and I'll hover my hand over the part that was identified as the worst part, and the thought of I'm not in control, because we want to hold that negative image and or the image and the negative cognition together. How disturbing does it feel on 0 to 10? 0, not at all, and 10, the most. And know with kids, you could do that creative way of really measuring that 0 to 10 SUD scale or 1 to 7 VOC or doing the BLS. So there's lots of ways to do that. Where do you feel that in your body? Oh, I feel like I just want to punch them, and I can feel my teeth getting tighter. Now, if it is with children, you'll want to make sure in phase 2 that you really do some good work on helping them prepare themselves with the somatic awareness, really recognizing those sensations in the body. Okay, so see how smooth and quickly that went? Let's do the next one. And the next one, I give the bowl to the client. Let me have you take this bowl over to the miniature shelf, pick out some miniatures, and bring them back to the sand tray and just kind of show me what this is like. Create an image that represents that. Okay, show me about what you created. Well, this is what it feels like. I'm juggling all these things. I feel like they're just they've consumed me. The wine at night, and then I smoke pot every morning when I get up, and I feel like I just can't do anything but those things. And the cigarettes are costing me money that I don't have, and I feel like I'm just a horrible parent. I can't believe that I'm doing this in front of my kid. My kid's going to grow up and they're going to be just as horrible as me. Wow. So the client just told me that entire story. So when you look at this image, what's the hardest part? What's the worst part? This part right here, my son, he's gonna think that this is the way to be. He's gonna look at me as what to do, and he's gonna be just as um, in a hole as I am right now, and I don't want that to happen. So lots of emotions are coming out there. It seems like that negative cognition is that I'm not good enough feels true. Well, no, I'm not good enough, but I'm just a horrible mother. I'm a horrible mother. So it seems like I'm a horrible mother, or kind of that's the biggest negative thought about yourself with that. Yeah, that's what it is. So see that negative cognition. Sometimes you won't get it right in the beginning, and that's okay to get it to miss the mark. You can you talk through and pinpoint that negative cognition with them. So, what you don't want to do is give them that sheet of negative and positive cognitions to just overwhelm them. You want to memorize that and have it off the tip of your tongue so it can flow nicely. So instead of I'm a horrible mother, what would you rather believe? Like I can learn from this or and do better? Yeah, I would love to learn from this and do better. That's why I'm here. How true does that feel in 1 to 7? Well, I guess it feels like a 5 because I came here today. When you look at this part right here, it seems like you're feeling really sad, you're feeling shameful, and it seems like you're feeling kind of hopeful too. So really tease out all those emotions, and she may come up with more emotions than you have mentioned, or you may have mentioned ones that are incorrect, and that's okay. But you want to make sure that you have that emotional piece there. Those feeling rocks can fit in there as part of your miniature selection. And then you have them hold that negative cognition and the image together and ask them, how distressing does it feel? How disturbing. So when you look at this part right here, and I'll put my hand over the baby part and the thought of, I'm a horrible mother, how disturbing does that feel on 0 to 10? Well, it feels like a 10. I hate being a horrible mother. Where do you feel that in your body? Oh, I feel like I'm going to cry, and I just want to, I just want to I just want to I want to punch something because I can't stand it. So notice that all of these things are being activated. That's how quick and how smooth it can go. So you can slide right on to the later phases. Now, I created this slide for when things go a little bit different. So sometimes you'll ask them to put miniatures into the sand tray and they don't. They may play with them somewhere else, or they may not follow it at all. So it's important not to be demanding with our clients. We want to be gentle. We want to be respectful of, they're not ready to go somewhere yet, or they're not ready to explore that target yet. So you may think, okay, we're going to integrate EMDR and Sandtray today, and you don't, and that's okay. You need to be flexible. Also, depersonalization can show up as not having any miniatures in the sand tray. They may put it outside the sand tray, and you can still go through all of these pieces with, what's the worst part of this? And that kind of seems like you feel like you're not in control, and just go through all of those pieces. Also, the middle one, that's an example of when you tell a client, or you direct the client that, let me have you take this bowl, go get some miniatures, and show me what illustrates this situation. So you have your target in mind. They came back to the sand tray and they put something totally different in the sand tray. It's not even close to what you were talking about. So if I directed a client to, tell me what it was like to be the only kid in your class that doesn't have a cell phone. So they come back, and then I say, tell me about what you created. Oh, this is an image of my sister and all of her friends playing, and I just hate them. So on the surface, that seems like it's not related, right? And it definitely is different than what I identified as the target. But you go with what they created at that point. So when you look at this image, what's the worst part? And a lot of times this will be connected to whatever's going on for them. And then you go through the image, the negative cognition, the positive cognition, the VOC, the emotions, the SUD, and the somatic location. Now on that next one, you can see that there's no sand tray even in the picture, right? You may direct them to get some miniatures, bring it back to the sand tray, and boom, next thing you know, the miniatures are somewhere else in the room. That right there is an image of my little kitchen set, and that's the oven. And the client may identify that piece as a casket. And it has the miniature of an older man in there. So they may be kind of reprocessing, knowing that their grandfather died, and you just kind of go with that. It's not in the sand tray, right? But it's right there. So tell me about this. And when they tell you about it, it's like, my grandfather was burnt up in an oven, and it just seems horrible that he had to go through that. So you would go through all of those pieces, the negative cognition, positive cognition with the VOC, the emotions, the SUD, the somatic location. Even though it's not in the sand tray, it is right there, and it is a target. So sometimes things go differently than you planned, right? Okay, so imagine what it would be like to combine the healing powers of EMDR and Sandtray Therapy with your clients. What else do you need to know to feel competent and comfortable to confidently integrate EMDR and Sandtray therapy in your work. That first image there of the little girl with the funnel and the Jurassic sand and the sand tray, that is an image that was taken after I took Lisa Dion's course on how to use the sand tray as a regulatory tool. I absolutely loved that course. It was just a 1 hour course. I think it was like $40. And right afterwards, I ran right to Walmart and got a funnel, a turkey baster. She has like a list of things to get, and I use it all the time now. It helps the kids not only regulate in their body, but it helps me as a therapist be a good co-regulator. So I incorporated that in my EMDR and Sandtray integration work. And that middle one is my daughter in side of my EMDR and Sandtray integrated course. She's demonstrating one of the specialized techniques. And the one on the right is an image of my friend Dr. Wallace and her beautiful children, kind of showing how the greatness sticks work. I love greatness sticks in the sand tray. I learned that from Tammy Van Hollander. There's a great blog post on there. She has a YouTube video about it. She also sells some little greatness sticks that goes with her book. So just Google Tammy Van Hollander greatness sticks and you can see how to do that. That was a game changer for me. That's not in phase 3. That's mainly in phase 2 for me. Maybe a little bit in phase 1, the history taking and the preparation. But I love it. So I do want to tell you about who inspired me in the beginning and now, and who I love to learn from. So I was trained locally here in Central Florida by Reg Morrow and Linda Ruff. And since then, EMDR Connect has been formed, and many of those trainers, Reg Morrow, Claire Maurer, Bill Brislin was the guy that certified me, Sherilyn Petrie Rowland, they all they are all trainers, and they can help support you, and that's where I've gotten a lot of my training from. So I will be forever grateful for them. So Anna Gomez was one of the first people that I heard about in my basic training. There wasn't a lot of kid components there in my basic training, so I just went right to Amazon and I bought her book, and I read it. Some chapters I read over and over again. It's really cool how it's one of those books where you can read a chapter and then go do some sessions, read that chapter again, and it speaks to you in an entirely different way. Anything that she does is really good. So if you get the chance to go to one of her trainings, definitely do so. The book is good. Marshall Isles is somebody that I just recently met. He's an EMDRIA approved consultant as well as an advanced trainer and a registered play therapist too. He's so heartfelt. He's so full of knowledge. It is amazing. I talked to him a little bit on the phone. I was hoping to meet him at a regular conference, or one of the conferences that's coming up. And of course, they got canceled during the time of this recording. We're going through the coronavirus. So there was a lot of cancellations. But Marshall Isles is really good. And Carolyn Settle, I had seen her name on that the art of psychotherapy with children that she wrote with Dr. Robbie Adler Tapia that I'll tell you about in a minute how it impacted me. But I really didn't know of her work until I needed a training to keep up my EMDRIA certification active. So I was like, oh, this one's on kids. I'll do this. And when I got into it, I was like, this is really good. It was really good. I was pausing and taking notes, and I bought a bunch of fidget spinners, and I loved her trainings. So Carolyn Settle's trainings are good. That a book that Dr. Bessel van der Kolk put out, The Body Keeps the Score, that opened up my eyes in a huge way. He talks about way more than EMDR in there, but I look at trauma through a different lens. So very good. And anything Lisa Dion does, she's the creator of Synergetic Play Therapy. She's been really inspirational to me. She was on my Innovative Child Therapy Symposium, as well as my podcast. And she wrote the book, Aggression and Play Therapy. Her words kind of become my inner dialogue in my head sometimes. And I really love how she just hones in on the importance of being the co-regulator in session. But she just doesn't tell you that. She shows you how to do that. So I love that. And this next one that I'm going to tell you about, this EMDR and Art of Psychotherapy with Children and Adolescents. When I first was trained, that was the other book that I had. I literally carried that with me everywhere I went. We'd go on vacation, and I would take it with me on vacation just in case I got a little bit of time here and there to read. It was a lifesaver, and it really kind of gave me that how does this work with kids piece. The next book, and this is a bold statement, but it is totally true. This is the best kids therapist book, and it's not even written just for therapists, but it has really helped my work, both personally and professionally. Is Mona Delahook's Beyond Behaviors book. It was a game changer. It's not an EMDR book, but it is so good. I listened to it on Audible many times. That's what I do. Like that Body Keeps the Score, I listened to like 17 times. I do that with Dr. Siegel books, but the this Beyond Behaviors book I did as well. But I ended up getting the the physical version of the book because she has lots of worksheets in there. That's really good. Okay, so Peter Levine's book, I just kind of stumbled on, and I absolutely love it. It's a book that that's where I first kind of started using titration and pendulation with my clients after that book. He is the guru on work, somatic experiencing, and stuff like that. So good. And anything that Dr. Siegel writes or does, I went to one of his conferences. It is a life changer. I love that yes activity. I do that, or the no activity, and that turns into a yes. I do that pretty much every chance I get to speak to a group of parents or a group of teachers. I do a lot of speaking events. Sandra Stanford is a local colleague of mine that I do some phase 2 training work with, and she also is one of the facilitators in that EMDR study group. She's so good. I've learned so much from her. I can't believe that I get to like know her in person. So we're Florida regional mental health counselor trainers as well. All right, so there's way more to this EMDR and Sandtray, way more to EMDR than just phase 3. This is just the assessment phase. It is important to get really in depth with each phase, just as you are with this one. But this isn't enough. You definitely need to get clear on the definition and the application of each phase. You need to know what to exactly do in each step and how to do it. So there's my greatness sticks that I made. And then I'm working through, that looks like phase 6 in that picture on the left. All right, so I do it with young clients. It works regardless of age. On the right side there, you can see an image of what some clients use for their container. Some make their own container, but there's some really playful ways that you can help clients with their working through their stuff, especially through play therapy and Sandtray Therapy. So I am an EMDRIA approved consultant, and I want to make sure that I answer your question. So what I did was kind of reflected back through time, looking at kind of some of the common questions that I get regarding this in my consultation sessions or in some of my trainings, and I put them here. I do want to do a shout out to one of my fellow EMDRIA approved consultants. She's really good. She was on my Innovative Child Therapy Symposium, and I love the way she thinks. I just like her personality too. She's very thorough. So I reached out to her for a quote to include on this, and she just delivered. This really is something that I believe wholeheartedly as well. So much time is spent on implementing EMDR and play therapy in the right way. No amount of training will help you implement the two modalities effectively when your own negative beliefs about your ability to use EMDR and play therapy are activated. Your best initial asset on integrating EMDR and play therapy is gaining a strong understanding of the standard protocol through consultation and being solidified in your play therapy approaches and orientation. Alyssa, she really does deliver that too. I always recommend that people learn from a multitude of sources so that they don't just become another version of one person. So some of my consultees have actually had consultation with her as well, and I have heard such great things about her. I've had consultation, kind of connection with her, and listening to what she had to say through the Innovative Child Therapy Symposium. I really like her a lot. Okay, so this is a common question that I get. Like, what happens if the client doesn't want to use Sandtray in their EMDR session? You just reflect that you don't want to use the Sandtray in your session today. And then you just kind of go with that. You don't want to be demanding or forcing your kind of plan on them in any way, shape, or form. Now, do you need formal Sandtray therapy training to ethically use it with EMDR? Absolutely. In fact, if you're going to do Sandtray therapy at all, you need training. It is a robust type of therapy that has great healing potential, but also there are some pitfalls that you can fall into. So, getting the training can clear that all up. There's some very key pieces, such as like don't put your hands in the sand tray. Don't name the miniatures until the client named them. There's some directives that you need to know that can influence the work that you do. There's some ways to help them regulate. It is a great type of therapy, but there's tons to learn. So some of the trainings that I recommend, definitely anything Marshall Lyles, especially knowing that you are an EMDR clinician. He's one of the best. He is absolutely incredible. So his website, marshalllyles.com, as well as Tammy Van Hollander. I'm a huge fan. She's where I gained my love for Sandtray Therapy right there as a grad student, looking at some of her online stuff. So look her up, as well as there's a new organization, and this is their website, worldsandtherapy.org. I just recently interviewed Jamie Lynn Langley for my podcast, Play Therapy Community, which will air shortly after the time of the recording of this training. But at that, they were going to have a conference, but it got canceled because of the coronavirus. At that conference, there was so many great trainings. I cannot wait till it eventually happens. They they really create the standard on just delivering Sandtray therapy with just ethical practice, and great creative ideas, ways to do it. What I want you to know though is when you do your trainings, don't limit yourself to just what you do. Like, I work with kids, so I'm just going to get training that helps me work with kids. I want you to pursue training in areas that you don't work on, and then you can kind of uh, just grow your knowledge and be able to bring that right back to the framework of what you're working in. Just know for sure that you need to be very clear on the components of the definition, the EMDRIA's definition of EMDR, and then you can fit those pieces in there as they apply. Also, there's a ton of trainings on the Association for Play Therapy website, a4pt.org. I love the Association for Play Therapy. They set the standard, very high quality trainings in there, and you can find a lot of Sandtray stuff. Some stuff that integrates Sandtray and EMDR, or play therapy and EMDR, is on there as well. Now, I did want to put this question in there, although this is not specific to phase 3. This is a question that I get frequently, and this really kind of and moves on to phase 4, the desensitization, and phase 5, the reprocessing. So, how do you allow for the adaptive shift in the Sandtray as the client reprocesses their target? So, once you have that image there, you may think, okay, so this is the image. They're going to be looking at this throughout our whole session. No, as you start to see that adaptive shift, you can direct them to update their image and to make changes. I put like the little graphic of someone picking up the rat and moving in the sun. I do actually have a rat in my miniature collection that gets used quite frequently. I think you've seen it in one of the earlier slides. You want that adaptive shift to occur. That's one of the beautiful parts of EMDR therapy, and the Sandtray is ideal for that because they can move it around. You do not move it around. They move it around. What if your client gets activated in phase 3 assessment? That's ideal. That's why you do want to make sure there's enough time in session to move forward with phase 4, phase 5, phase 6, phase 7. You want to be able to have that continuity throughout the session. So they may get activated. You're asking them to create an image and to really think of whatever they're working on, and teasing out that negative belief and looking at the sud and the location in their body, all of that. So things may see how she's kind of slunched over. That's she's feeling that sadness. She may be feeling all kinds of emotions there. When that happens, I think of it as kind of like a splinter sticking out. At that point, then you can pull the splinter out. So would you like for me to teach you more? I definitely would love to, if you want to go further. If you don't, now you have a pretty good, I think, understanding of how phase 3 works. So I do want to tell you about my 2 courses. I have the 8 phases of EMDR therapy with children and adolescents, as well as EMDR and Sandtray Therapy integrated. Is step by step, pretty much how I taught you this one. I give you examples and I teach you the components. We really hone in on the fidelity piece, because if you're not doing it with fidelity, then you're not doing it correctly or in the way that it was designed. Not that it's not correct, but if you want to do EMDR as it was designed and researched and get the effects on that, then you need to be clear on the definition. So you can find my courses. You can find those courses and many more. I also have Ultimate Private Practice Play Therapy Creation course. I have the Innovative Child Therapy Symposium. I'm getting ready to release a couple more courses. I have that one with Dr. Jen coming out. You can find those all at this website, https:// playtherapycommunity.teachable.com. They're all on there, as well as any consultation that you would like. I'm available for as well. Definitely check out Jackie Flynn Consulting or playtherapycommunity.com. And you may want to just kind of work on a specific case that you feel stuck on. You may want to learn about how to integrate play therapy techniques into your work. You may just want to hone your skills or pursue EMDRIA certification or your consultant credential. So I can definitely do and support you in those ways. All right, so I do want to tell you what some of the people that I've worked with, they have to say about me, so you could get a feel for what it's like to work with me. This is Tammy Van Hollander. She's one of my consultees, and she said, Jackie really knows her stuff, and I love how she really gets trauma, play therapy in young children. She finds a creative way to incorporate EMDR into your practice in a simplified, loving, and healing way. Thank you, Tammy. And this is Diana Shaw. She's one of my supervisees here locally. Jackie gives a practical, hands-on insight that I'm able to apply in session immediately with positive results. Jackie is passionate about her work and pours that same passion into those that she supervises. She makes herself quite available to answer questions that I may have about my clients, and I'm a better clinician because of her supervision, and that's the truth. Thank you, Diana. And this is Aspen. I just recently seen her in person in a training. I went up there to do my 8 phases of EMDR with children and adolescents training in Redwood Meadows near Calgary, Canada. And I felt lucky to get back. This is during the time of the coronavirus, so we weren't sure whether we would get back into country. And we just made it before they closed the borders. So this is what Aspen said. Working with Jackie has been a wonderful experience. She has been so supportive as I learned how to integrate EMDR into my play therapy practice. I have learned so much from her, and I feel a lot more confident in my EMDR practice with children. She is down to earth and was willing to share so many resources to help support my learning process. I am so grateful for my consultation with Jackie and would highly recommend her as a consultant. Thank you, Aspen. She's so nice. Oh, here's Tamara. She came to one of my trainings in person here in Central Florida. She said, consultation with Jackie has transformed my play therapy practice. She is a wealth of information. I was so stuck in figuring out how to weave play therapy and EMDR together. After taking Jackie's workshop and then beginning group and individual consultation with her, I finally feel like that I have a better foundation of skills to use. I highly recommend consultation with Jackie. You won't be disappointed. Thank you, Tamra. And here's Tita. Tita is one of my consultees that she went through the entire certification process with me. And she said, I've gotten so much from my consultation with Jackie, and I'm glad that I decided to pursue certification. I feel confident about my use of EMDR and how to apply it with the clients that I work with. Tita, thank you for saying that. I loved working with you. All right. Thank you so much for listening to this training. Again, check out JackieFlynnConsulting.com and let me know what you thought about this. All right, take care.